Hello, welcome to Star Wars Spelt Out. I'm your host, Josh Chapman, and today, we're back. We've been away for so long. People were asking, where you been? Hey man, been in lockdown. And my guest today was on the last episode like a month ago, thinking that we'd be out of lockdown soon. So we just do a little commentary track, and then nothing happened. So we had the whole new Star Wars show, so I was like, I got to get her back on and chit-chat. Catherine, That Geek Pod, Catherine Kneen, you know her. How you going?
Yeah, going all right.
A few more weeks. Get that vax rate up.
Yep. I repost them every day. They're the numbers I'm looking at.
Yeah, your little crush, Casey Briggs, putting the numbers up.
Oh, my Casey charts. Get them into my veins.
On the Casey hotline.
Yep.
Shout out if you're listening.
It's just bizarre that, like every day I'm looking excitedly at bar charts and train videos. I am a nerd.
Been inside for too long. It's quite funny actually, because like we are in lockdown. We're the most locked down city in the world. Yeah, we know all this stuff. We had some riots the other day and all this, and we had an earthquake the other day as well, which was pretty cool. And the funny thing is though, like I've been getting a bunch of messages, especially this week, from friends overseas, friends of the show, people some friends of mine from England going, "Oh my god, are you okay? Is it all falling apart?" Like, yeah, I'm fine, just at home. Like it seems weird. Like there's still this sort of disconnect where, there is this sort of drama going on, but yeah, we're all right. We'll be out in a few weeks.
Yep.
School's back in 3 weeks. Homeschool's done. Our vax rate's up. Oh. So,
Yeah. The return to school, look, the Department of Education hasn't put out to us teachers yet a clear, right, this is what we're doing. And our school hasn't given us a schedule of what we're doing. So that's going to be not at all messy.
Hey, all that matters is that the prep goes back and we don't have to homeschool prep, and then we'll be done and we'll work it out. Now, we should actually bring this up because we may be in lockdown, and we thought we were done at the start of the year. You came around and potted here, and Andy came around, and we've done things. We've caught up. We went to events, and we went to the Star Wars thing at Fed Square. And we went to a Comic-Con here in Melbourne, and we've done stuff. We haven't been in lockdown all year by any stretch. But silver lining to all of this is, it looks like celebration is going to happen. It looks like we are actually going to get to celebration, and which a few months ago wasn't looking possible.
It's so bizarre because this week I was actually going to be interstate. I was actually had booked to go to Uluru, Ayers Rock, formerly known as.
To climb it, obviously.
No. But I'd booked that in January thinking, by September, we'll be right. We'll be right. But yeah, so obviously that was cancelled. But yeah, you're right. In the last couple of weeks, it's been looking, as our vaccination rates have gone up, and Qantas have said, look, from mid-December, flights to these international destinations are opening up. It's like, oh my God, I can go to celebration. It's looking like I can go.
Yeah, this is the huge thing. So we, when when Matt from Blue Bantha Milk was on, we were going, we don't know a plan. We got no targets. They kept saying borders are closed till mid-May. They changed the date. We didn't know anything. And then, our vaccination rate was so low because our government didn't order enough vaccinations. That's why we're in this mess that we're in, that they just didn't. Because we were out of lockdown, they were like, oh, no rush on vaccination. The Prime Minister literally said it's not a race to get... He literally said, it's not a race to get vaccinated, don't worry. And then...
He said it multiple times.
So then, of course, Delta got into the country and we had to lock down again because nobody was vaccinated. So the silver lining of all this is that it put an absolute rocket up the arse of the vaccinations here. So it means that we basically can't get out of lockdown until our vaccination rate's high enough, which is, I think it's basically 80% for everyone to get out, and we're going to hit 80% single dose probably this week, which means we're 40, 45 days, everybody getting their second dose if everyone gets their second dose, which they should. So that was the proviso of, hey, we'll open the borders up internationally at 80%. So not like a lot of other countries that have opened up earlier and haven't been able to get that rate up because everyone's already out, so it's harder to convince people. We're going to be open at 80% double vaccination, and then we're out the door, basically.
Yeah, it's looking far more hopeful than what you could have told me a month, 2 months ago.
Oh, for sure. I mean, after that announcement, I just thought, I was like, maybe by Christmas we'll have an idea of where we're at, and we can maybe, figure out whether we can, in 5 months' time in May, whether we can sneak in under the radar and maybe do a home quarantine and already blah, blah, blah. And they're already kind of going, we won't even be doing home quarantining anymore, maybe, or you'll just be at home for a couple of days if you're double vaxxed. And so anything can happen. If these times have taught us anything, Catherine, anything can happen. But as it stands right now, we're more likely than we have been in probably, I want to say 18 months, maybe.
Yeah, because there was even a news story, I think this week, that the US were welcoming vaccinated citizens of Europe, of the EU, back again. Previously, they were really only open for American citizens. So this means that even on the American side, they're far more happy if people are vaccinated, and I think with a negative test prior to flight. So it's looking bizarrely hopeful, to the point of I went onto a website and went, okay, there's flights, but I freaked out and went, I can't book this.
This is all going too easy. This is too smooth. There must be a trick in here somewhere.
So travel agent and I will do that together next week. So yes, it's a very bizarre time.
Obviously when it all kind of went down, I was very much like, I ain't saying it's over till it's over. I'm not giving up on this thing. So much so that, we booked hotels still and did all that kind of stuff, found out that we could basically book a hotel without having to put any money up. So of course we'll just book it, and then you had till 3 days before celebration before you had to actually, you couldn't get your money back, or you had to pay basically. So we're like, well, let's just get it, because if it's there, then we have it. I'm getting to a point now where I'm just kind of going, because hotels aren't cheap, going, maybe I can look at like getting a house like we got last time and doing that and opening it up, because I know there's other people who want to come. And I mean, we're a while away from that yet, but like it's the conversation in our house anyway has certainly shifted to, looks like this is gonna go down, like this is gonna happen. Yeah,
because when they shifted that date, I mean, you saw me, I was a mess. I was a mess because I was like, we're not getting out. But it looks like it's happening. God, I better knock on like every bit of wood. Oh, good Lord. But Australian government, you've got to shop like me. You don't just buy one thing. No. You buy multiple things. If you like one top, then you get it in every colour, because you're not sure. This is me during lockdown, during my online shopping. I don't buy one thing.
So you're going to buy a bunch of flights just in case. Flight via New Zealand, flight via Dubai, flight via Hong Kong, flight via Singapore.
If I was in charge of, vaccines, it would have been, not just one. I would have gone, I'll get that one.
Oh, right. Yes, I see what you mean. Yep.
And that one, I need variety. I need my wardrobe.
I'll keep the receipt, or I'll give it to someone else who needs it. I know. That's the irony. The irony being that we should have all been vaccinated by April. We wouldn't have been having this conversation. It's grand final day here in Melbourne tomorrow. If people don't know what that is, that's basically Australia's Super Bowl day. Our team isn't in it. Catherine and I both go for the Bombers. We didn't make it this year again, surprisingly. But my partner Kat's team, Melbourne, did make it, and they haven't been in it for 20 years, and they haven't won it for nearly 60 years. So that's a pretty big deal at our house, although it's not going to be in Melbourne because we're in lockdown. So Kat can't go. It's going to be in Perth.
I'm so torn for them, for the oh yeah, you want them to win because they haven't won one for so long. But then there's but it's not here in Melbourne. They can't go to the ground and celebrate. They can't do any of that.
Judging by my observations of having a Melbourne supporter in the house, and sorry about the footy talk, but considering how bad Melbourne have been for how long, and every country on sports team has their team of, this is the team that's been bad for forever. Melbourne have been bad for at least the last 15 years, like bottom bad. They'll take anything they can get. If they win it, they win it. Yeah. Although shout out to our friend of the show and my Peppa Pig podcast mate, Matt Frost, who is actually going to the game because he lives in Adelaide and they're not in lockdown, and he can go over, and he's going over because his team, the Bulldogs, are who they're playing. So we might not hear from Matt. If they win, we might not see him for days. So that's why we haven't had a Pepper for the last few weeks, because Matt's been too busy celebrating getting into the grand final. But we'll see. So anyway, good news for people keeping tracks on will Australians get to celebration. As it stands today, it's more likely than it has been. I'll never say that it's until we're on that plane. Actually, you know what? Until we're actually off that plane and even if I'm in the air and then we get there and we land and...
I've got to be on the floor, overwhelmed by all the figurines to know I'm there. That's when I can go, I've made it. Until
I'm having a beer with King Tom, I don't know what's really happening, okay? Until I'm like giving Hawes and Jesse a high five or something, it's not real. I'm giving Emily Lind a hug. Like, until that happens, I'm just waiting for anything else to go wrong. Considering we had an earthquake this week in Melbourne, which hasn't happened ever, at least in my time living in Melbourne. I'm like, we could get off the plane at LA, get through, and then there could be an earthquake and the bloody convention centre could sink into the ground or something, and then it won't happen. Like, anything could happen.
I know there was one 10 years ago because it happened on the day my niece was born.
I think I was overseas
basically, for that one. They were the same time. Oh. My sister was in the elevator going up to the maternity ward, and hello.
Wow, way.
Yep.
As someone who's been in the room for 2 births, there's enough going on. Really, you don't really need to have an earthquake going along too. So anyway, that's good. That's just a little update. I think it's good that you're here as well. We can bring that up because obviously you've been tracking online about whether Catherine can get to celebration. So if anybody's asking, and we have been, it is a question that comes up quite a lot. People are wondering what's going on with Melbourne, considering we've been locked down for so long. Things are looking up. We'll be out of lockdown in a few weeks, hopefully for good, once the vax rates are up. And it's quite weird because we're so low on the vax rates in the world, but in 3 weeks we'll be like in the top 5 in the world or something. It's really weird. Like we've gone from like the 38th in the world, and we'll finish up somewhere in the top 5 in a matter of weeks because we're just jumping over that sort of 60 mark where most other countries are. All right. This is a Star Wars podcast, Catherine, believe it or not. I was going to ask you, did you get your new Andor? Is that new Andor figure coming out yet? The Cassian one?
No, not yet. It's pre-ordered, but
it's in a wave. Because I saw, is that in the same wave as the Bodhi Rook? Because I saw somebody on Twitter had the Bodhi Rook, so I'm assuming you must be pretty close.
Yeah.
Andor
I haven't got the date on that. Yeah. I can't see, but they haven't given me a date yet. So, but it's part of the
that wave, isn't it?
That wave.
I got the Captain Rex in the poncho one the other day, which I'd pre-ordered when we went in lockdown at Zing, and then I was over near Chadstone because I had to get a car battery, and I was like, and they'd called me going, "Hey, your pre-order's ready to pick up your Captain Rex." And I'm going, "Yeah, we're in lockdown." And I said, "Oh no, it's all right. We won't be open, but you can just come to the door. There'll be someone there. You can call a number." And it was like, you know what Chadstone's like. So it's all closed up, and I go up, and there's just like a phone number. So I call the phone number. The guy comes to the door, and I tell him my name, show my order. And then he goes, "Oh, cool." And then he comes back and he goes, "Oh, I can't. We're doing a totally non-contact purchase. Normally, you do your tap and go or whatever."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh no, I need to call you on the phone, and then can you read your credit card number out over the phone, and I'll punch it in from 5 feet away through the door." through the door. I gone, all right, I've seen it all in lockdown, so I'm like, all right, no worries. So I did that, and I got my Captain Rex, and he's yeah. So I got a Wrecker and I got a Captain Rex. That's where I've left my figure stuff at. Did you order just one Andor, or did you get a couple?
Oh, two. I originally had 4, and then I went, no, Catherine, you can get more later. So I took it back to 2.
One to open, one to keep on the shelf.
Exactly.
Nice. Talking like a true collector. So the reason that we've pulled the stops out and dusted ourselves out of this lockdown, no episode funk that we haven't done is because Star Wars Visions dropped the other day. And I just finished watching it a couple of hours ago. I'd sort of watched the first half on Wednesday night when it came out. I think it was Wednesday night here. Yeah. So I watched half of it. It was actually because I'd watched, because the grand finals on. We've been consuming all the football shows here. Like Kat's obsessively watching AFL 360 and all these other ones. And then we finished that, and I've gone, do you want to watch one of the other ones, Footy Classified or whatever it was, or do you want to watch this Star Wars Vision show? She's like, oh, no, you watch it. We've been watching footy shows. So she made it through the first couple, and I watched about the first 5, and then I watched the rest of them the other day. So we'll go through all of them. We'll talk a little bit more detail, but I'm assuming you've watched them because you would have said you hadn't when I said, hey, do you want to talk about Visions?
Yeah.
What's your general, like, without going into specifics, general feel?
There's a couple that I would like, I'd like to continue that one on. There's a few that I was a bit, whatever.
Yep.
But yeah, it felt odd to consume it all on one night. It was a bit much, to be honest. Is that what you did?
You did it, did you?
Yeah. You get a bit like 2 halves kind of thing, but still it was a bit to consume in the one night. And I think in some ways the last ones you don't appreciate as much because you've just
plowed
through it all.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think, I thought animation was great. I liked that it wasn't canon. They just, came up with all this sort of different stuff. I think putting them all out at once and then watching them, I know I watched it over 2 nights. And I haven't read anything else anywhere else. So I'm sorry if someone else has said this or no one else has said this, whatever. I felt that it did tread the same story beats a lot in a lot of episodes. A lot of someone fighting someone, similar big lightsaber things, samurais as Jedis, obviously. A lot of kyber crystal stuff. Like the kyber crystals, were prominent in almost every episode, I think.
Yeah.
And it was quite funny. Like we'll talk when we get to it, but it was funny because like the one that I felt like the Tatooine Rhapsody one, which I suppose is probably the most divisive of all of them, was actually one of the most interesting because it didn't follow the same sort of structure as all the other ones. Like most of the other ones, felt like kind of followed a similar beat to them. But we'll let's just dig in. We don't have to go into too much detail. We'll just sort of breeze over them, and I've sort of got a little breakdown in front of me, and if you haven't got one in Catherine, I'll just take you through. But we kicked off with the duel, which was cool. But it did sort of feel like it was the template for all the others going forward. And I know they're not connected and things, but it was sort of like this was a good sort of way in, I think, because it very much was like similar but different, stylized.
I liked that it was that black and white, except for the colour of the lightsabers and blasters and occasional little other bits, but also it looked like the film was scratched in some places.
It was like old Japanese samurai films, like Seven Samurai, Hidden Fortress kind of stuff, which was cool. Did you watch them in English?
Yes.
Yeah, same here.
Yes. I think at some point I might do the Japanese then and English subtitles. But I think the first viewing, you want to take in the visuals, so you need the English audio. Yep.
And what I'm going to do in all of these, if I can recall, is droid watch. Because I think some amazing droid work in all of these episodes. Like it was almost like they're like try and invent the best droid. and every one of them like just had awesome droids in it. So
yeah. Again, that droid was brilliant. It was fantastic. I can't remember. Yeah, it's his hat. His hat and his jetpacked everywhere. But I think this is a bit of a macro thing as well. I think this is what fans would make. Fans would make stuff with lightsabers. Why? Because they're cool. Fans would make stuff with droids because we love droids. So this is really a lot of things that people really wanted to make.
Yep.
So I think if there's any pushback about, they're all the same, they're all about lightsabers, it's because, these people are fans. They wanted to make stuff that they wanted to see.
Yep. And some really cool bits in this, like bits that I'd like to see them. Like I was when they were flying on the log down the river and the waterfall. I was like, how come we've never seen like a lightsaber thing in them? Like some of it, I was just going, it would be a real bummer now because a lightsaber fight in front of a waterfall or on a waterfall would be awesome. And now, if you did it, would you be like, they kind of did that in that Visions thing? But I guess they do lightsaber fights in the desert and everywhere else. So why not do it again? But I thought that like on the log and it was nice little like helicopter lightsaber got in there as well.
I did think of Steel.
I haven't seen Steele's reaction to this yet. I'll have to go. I sort of purposely haven't. The only thing I've looked at was the Star Wars Explained did like a little Easter eggs thing. I haven't actually seen those guys' reactions.
I saw that
or anything,
too. But it was a really cool use with the helicopter saber, if you will. But it was this special sort of add on to her lightsaber that she put on. But I love the twist with Ronan at the end in it when he pulled out his lightsaber and it was also red because a great deal was made out of the colour of the lightsabers that was throughout.
Yeah.
And so it being red was this is interesting. And I think he's the character that there's going to be a book about later on, isn't there?
Well, it was a lot of because it wasn't canon, it was quite good because they were just like, well, we don't have to, we can put Jedis in somewhere where there's like Stormtrooper outfits or First Order outfits or Imperial ships or Rebel ships, and we'll just have Jedis. Like, who cares? It doesn't matter. Like, we don't have to worry about like, well, this doesn't make sense because there'd be no Jedis or there'd be no Siths or what would they be? Like, it was just good to free yourself from that and then just kind of have the visual, have the world around it without being constrained around like, it's got to slot into a little story bit of where it's got to be. Like I thought that was very freeing, which was cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll come back if we need to come back to it. We've got 9 of these things that we'll burn through. Now, I really liked Tatooine Rhapsody. I thought it was so like Japanese. Of like, I've been to Tokyo. I'm not a huge consumer of anime, but as I'm certainly aware of it. And a lot of the times, like, I think we'll talk to this more when we get to other ones, but a lot of the shows that, we watched as kids, like your Voltrons, your Astro Boy, your Battle of the Planets, all that kind of stuff, was dubbed Japanese stuff that you didn't really realize as a kid, but you kind of go, it's very obvious now in the style and the obvious dubs and things. And I just dug this because it was so... It just wasn't, and this was only the second one too. So, as I said before, like there was a lot of like lightsaber fights and Masters versus Sith and all that kind of thing. And this was the second one off the bat, so it wasn't kind of like, I've watched 9 lightsaber battles and now I've got one about a little scrappy band. But I did like that, because we always make the jokes about, like your Kanans and your Cal Kestuses of like, there's always another Jedi apprentice who slips through the cracks and that's his story. And I was like, let him join a band.
Yeah, it was probably the biggest jump stylistically throughout sort of the 9. Like to go from the duel to this was a bit of a jump. But yeah, it was... definitely an interesting idea and a different idea.
It was a very much like all bets are off kind of, you know what I mean? Like you watch that duel one and you go, okay, I think I got a pretty good idea about what this is all about, this Vision show. And then the next one straight off the bat is just like, we're like, band. And the thing that was weird, now I've got a picture in front of me. I don't know if you got a picture. I've just got a picture of like the main character and the Hutt, who's the bass player. Like, where's the Hutt's eyes? Are those purple things his eyes? Is that his nose? Like, he's got the piercings, but there's his nostrils. Like, I couldn't figure out where his eyes... Is like under his fringe, or is he...
I couldn't figure out the eyes, yeah. I couldn't figure it out. It was quite weird. And yet he had hair, and that really weirded me out as well.
Yeah, so I wasn't sure like where he's... Because he's got his nostrils, but I wasn't sure where they were his eye slots because he's got like a nose ring, but then he's got like a pin at the top of his head, and yeah, because he's got these like purple... I mean, like, I guess they're his eyes. Like, is he wearing sunnies? I don't know. I just...
But, Jabba wanting to kill him.
I know.
Like, execute him for not joining the family...
business
is a bit extreme, because you think Tony Soprano, he wouldn't have killed AJ if AJ didn't join the mafia. He would have been... whatever.
As someone who didn't join the family business myself, like my brother and sister joined the family business, and I didn't join the family business. I can sympathize. Not that I was like, I'm going to go rock out, but but I just thought it was cool. Like, I liked that there was like the robot and there was the 3-body drummer, and it was just kind of it was silly, but it was also that kind of, it was like a play on the... Oh, you've seen this story before of the Jedi apprentice who gets away from the, Order 66, and it's just good. It's just like, rather than going on this journey of self-discovery to become a Jedi, he's just like, I'm just going to join a band. And I'm
going to turn my lightsaber into a microphone.
Yeah, and then my plan at the end, like the rescue, is just to rock out. Like, we always laugh at Luke and Leia, like, what's the plan to rescue Han? Like, they should have gone and rocked out for Jabba.
And the Bill and Ted plan to save the world is to just have a really good rock concert.
Yeah. And they're perfectly fine band. I mean, people in Tatooine are probably starved for entertainment anyway. Like, if that many people are just turning up to an execution, like, you'd be pretty impressed if someone actually like played music. Like, oh, well, this is different. This isn't quite as horrible. It's something else.
Yeah.
Even like the let them play one more song.
Yeah, it was kiddish is the wrong word, but it was the most sort of accessible, all ages one
for sure.
of the 9, I think. Yeah.
But I think it was the most, like, it almost took the most risks, because it just didn't it didn't fall in, especially like when you get to the other ones and they've all got some similar vibes. Like, they're all coming from different angles, slightly, obviously, but there's a lot of repeating beats. Like, this one just literally had nothing. I mean, even though it had the most references to existing Star Wars stuff, like it had Boba Fett, it had Bib Fortuna, it had Jabba the Hutt, all this sort of stuff. Like, it lent closer on the familiar things, the designs, like the Boonta Eve, like arena or whatever was all there, but at the same time wasn't sort of like... Yeah, we're going to have a grizzled master and all that kind of thing. But I just wonder what's going to happen to these now. Like, season 2, do they pick up the story? I mean, I know there's dangling threads on a lot of them. Do we pick them up again? Like, where's the, let's get the band at Celebration. I want to see like some people in those outfits, like dressed and doing a concert. Like, get me a guy in a rubber Hutt costume with a fringe rocking on some bass. Like, stuff those galactic Empire metal guys. Like, let's get some of this. All right, let's move along, because we'll get stuck on this thing. We're on the twins, featuring Alison Brie.
Yes.
As the bad sister.
Yeah, and it was Neil Patrick Harris as the brother, wasn't it?
So, I mean, obvious parallels to Luke and Leia, like almost like, it was almost kind of like a what if, wasn't it, Luke and Leia? Like, what if Luke, like, almost like what if Vader had just taken the twins? Like, I was kind of almost, like, I know that they didn't lean on those characters and stuff like that. But it was that close to sort of like a what if episode of like, what if Darth Vader raised those twins and you know, they were both sort of dark sidey to a point. Very, I want to say extreme, but like had some real kind of like that end of sort of, how do I want to put it? The anime stuff, you know, almost like the big fighting, like the big Robotech fighting kind of thing, you know, like the big sort of battle scenes and the...
Yeah, it was very much that feel. I loved the droids in this one. His little R2 unit. Of course I loved him because, you know, R2. And he had the same beeps and bops. So, and you could say that, you know, there was an R2 and 3PO parallels in there as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was cool. But, yeah, it was you know, we didn't quite know what it was going in. Like, why did the brother want, what was he doing? And then he stole the crystal. And the crystal was a big deal.
The crystal's a big deal and a bunch of them. Like, that was the thing I noticed. I was sort of going, oh, they really, like a lot of them are focusing on crystals and things like that, and sort of, you know, like lightsabers in general, but like the crystal sort of being the catalyst for a lot of them. I did like the total disregard for like being able to breathe outside in space and like, you know, like flying on top of the neck. I mean, and that bit where he sort of sends the ship into hyperspace and then he's like cutting with the hyperspace and, you know, that, and then getting the holdo maneuver almost. And
it was just no regard for physics or law of space, but I mean, that's Star Wars.
Yeah. I would really like to see footage of like Alison Brie recording that, because she was like going for it, you know, like she's like, like in that very, I'd like to almost hear, that'd be a good one to hear the Japanese dub, I reckon, too, because I think similar extreme vibes.
Yeah. And, you know, it was interesting, you know, that the Kyber crystal was powering the weapon, you know, a planet-destroying weapon, of course, on that big cannon between the Gemini Star Destroyers. But it was also going to power their suits. I didn't quite understand that as well.
Yeah, but then she had like the arms that came out, and then... and I just thought at first, I'm like, oh, okay, that's why they're in space. They can do it on space because they're in those suits. And then it was like, oh, we don't need these suits. We could just like run along the surface of the ships and stuff. So, yeah, it had I've certainly seen enough sort of, you know, Japanese animation to sort of place these ones in certain, not categories, but, you know, but like they do remind me of a certain style. And that was sort of that extreme sort of, like you said, the Robotech kind of like big battle kind of thing. And again, that was like another one where it was just sort of, like hanging threads, I suppose.
Yeah. You know, because he was in an X-Wing, of course, flying, standing on the hood of a X-Wing with this overpowered lightsaber cutting a Star Destroyer in two. Just amazing. And that shot, like they lingered on a long time of the holdo maneuver. You know, they're ripped apart in space, but then crash landed on Tatooine, of course, looking up at the twin suns.
Yeah. You kind of feel like it's not over yet. It was interesting because, like, I think that was the second or third one going, with 2 out of 3, we've got girl baddies as well. Like, it seemed like there was a lot of, like, girl baddies going on because there was a girl baddie in the first one, girl baddie in the third one. I didn't.
Girls can be baddies too.
Oh, I know. It was just interesting. Like, you know, because we haven't had one, like, we haven't had one in canon, really. Like, you know, like a proper, you know, as far as like in the main movies and stuff anyway. So it was kind of like already 2 sort of templates, like either those could work, you know, and I think there's some more coming up too. So then we move on to the Village Bride. I've
got to admit, I didn't quite understand a lot of the story here.
Slow burn, this one too.
Yeah. That there were parts of me that thought it was like flashbacks. I didn't maybe I wasn't paying attention. It was probably nearly dinner time. And so there was that Jedi and the old guy, and I thought the old guy was also a Jedi. I didn't quite understand that part.
With the bucket on his head kind of guy?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, and
it was sort of a lot. There was sort of like a lot. There was sort of like a lot of things going on, but it kind of sort of did it slowly. Like there was always sort of like thing about like the sister, you know, trying to sell them out, and she wanted to fight, and the other ones didn't want to fight, and she was kind of in charge. And yeah, I'm not sure about this one. Again, it was sort of. But again, it was that sort of like, you know, it sort of ended with the lightsabers again and the same sort of thing. And there were, you know, a lot of like almost every story, I think, as far as like on planets was all focused around village size. You know, there's no like cities.
Yeah.
It was, I mean, I guess that's sort of, again, it's tying into that sort of traditional samurai stories and things of all like in the villages and things. It was always kind of village level. You know, it was the people having a problem. And then...
calling on a lone warrior to help them. Yeah. And, but I didn't quite understand this one. Was this the one where at the end she, like, cut off her braid and ripped the mask off?
No, that's a later one, I think. Yeah, this is the one where she sort of, like, says that she'll go with the Empire to save the village and things. And, yeah...
No, like the Jedi. The Jedi in it. Didn't she?
Oh, maybe.
Yeah.
Does that mean she kind of graduates then? Was that sort of... I can't remember.
Yeah. Yeah, but it was... because, there were, like, bandits who had reprogrammed the Separatists...
Yep.
battle droids. So we got some Roger.
We did get some Roger.
And then, she was observing this, bride and groom as he carried her up the mountain. And then I thought when they were up the mountain, they, like, opened, like, a big stone thing and it did some things in the valley, but that wasn't ever mentioned again. So I'm like, what?
Yeah.
And I full on thought that he was going to be opening up, like, a Jedi temple, because I had flashbacks to in Rebels when Ezra finds like a Jedi temple with a rock thing and the symbols, and it opens up for him to go down into it. So I think I'll have to go back and rewatch. I've only watched them once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll move on. We'll move on to... Now, this is the one that I watched. I watched this I think it was the last one I watched the other night before I took a break, which was the Ninth Jedi. So a lot of people said this one's their favourite, and there are some really cool concepts in it. Again, it's that slow burn. A lot of these take a long time to get going, which is pretty standard, I think. You know, and a lot of sort of Japanese animated stuff. You know, you do pause for emotions and the conversations and reactions, and there is a lot of that. In these as well, where it's not just like bang, bang, dialogue. There's a bit of, they sort of back and forth and people don't sort of necessarily rush to say what they're saying. But this was quite cool, and there were some nice twists in it that, she's the daughter of the guy who's making the lightsabers and things. And it's, it has the Jedi follows the signal and they're all sort of turning up to meet at this spot. And again, it was that kind of cool thing where it's like, well, it's not canon, so they're all sort of depicted as Jedis, but none of them have lightsabers, and no one's seen a lightsaber for ages, but they still feel the Force. And it was just a cool concept of like, can't really place it in a time thing as well.
Yeah. It could have been set hundreds of years before the Skywalker saga or hundreds of years after.
No, I felt
really know.
Listening to this, like I could be wrong. I have to go back and re-listen to the music, but there was a few times in the music I thought I heard bits of Rey's theme in there. I'd have to go back and listen, but listening to it going like, oh, that little bit sounds like it's a bit like that's just a bit of Rey's theme. So then I was kind of like, I wonder if there's a connection to that, whether it's post Rey, you know, and I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, even if it's like hundreds of years later, but it's a legacy of like what she did, you know, restoring the Jedi, as if that comes later. But I think I'm reading into this, I suppose. Yeah. But it was cool. Like, I liked that the lightsabers were sort of clear. Yeah. And then you know, they change color depending on who's grabbing them and things.
And I liked it. I liked it a lot, actually. I like that our sort of point of view character, or who we think's going to be our point of view character, the first person we see, actually isn't our main character. It's the girl down on the planet helping her father build the lightsabers, and she picks one up, plays with it, and at first, yeah, it's got no color, but throughout, we see it slowly getting stronger and stronger in color. Green. Yeah. There were a lot of green lightsabers, so
which was also cool because, like, the twist at the end where they all grab their lightsabers and they're all Sith. So you can do that they ignite the lightsabers and they all go red, and you're like, oh, they're actually all baddies and things. That's a nice little twist. I like that. And then, like, the one guy, and then there was even the guy who his lightsaber was red, and they're like, oh, hey man, you just got caught up in it, and he's like, oh yes, and then it changes color as they pull him away from the dark side.
You know, yeah, he was left and his was purple. And that's when they're going, no, you've just gotten caught up in influences. And so, yeah, it was
fell in with a bad crowd, you know.
Yeah. And that now they have a mission to go find her father and find other Jedi. And that's a story I'm like, oh, that one could be interesting if they pick up on that one again.
Full marks to the little... I thought this was the best droid in this twist. He had the little droid who did a little twirly. He had the little arms that came out, and he'd sort of jump down, do a little like helicopter-y on. I thought that one, like, oh, that's a really good droid design. Like, that was... Yeah, I really liked that.
Cool droid. And the tea sipping droid who flew the ship.
He's just like, whatever, just having a nice cup of tea. I appreciate that. As someone who likes a good cup of tea, hopefully that's a nice Yorkshire Gold there. Shout out to all my Yorkshire Gold drinkers out there. Chris Hall, if you're listening, mate.
But yeah, that was a cool one. I really liked that one. And would be interested in seeing more of that.
Yeah. Well, it's just really good. You know, that's good places to take things, and you kind of go, oh, all right. Like, it's quite a smart thing to do, because like they do 9 different stories, and even if 3 of them take people's interest, like, well, there's 3 potentially new little Star Wars franchises you've got there where you could continue. They could turn around and go, hey, like, Ninth Jedi, we're going to do a 10-episode run of it now. And, you know, it's really, really clever. Like, smart lady, that Kathy Kennedy. Now, we're moving on to T. Obi-Wan, little play on Obi-Wan Kenobi. And I think you, like me, Catherine, grew up on a bit of Astro Boy. Flying high in the sky.
A lot of Astro Boy vibes
Astro Boy.
In this one.
Some real Astro Boy vibes in this. A bit of Pinocchio as well, of like a cybernetic little boy, you know, like a sort of robot boy who wants to be, that's what, Astro Boy was very much like that. Even like the creator was big Dr. Relevant vibes as well. Like, it really lent on that. Like, I was going, oh wow, that they're not even trying to, like, even when I saw the trailer going, oh, that looks a bit Astro Boyish, and then the master comes, I'm like, oh, it's effectively Dr. Elephant, So it does feel
really cute little droid in this one.
Oh, all his mates. He's got like all the droid mates, hasn't he?
Yeah, so cute.
Again, it was sort of another sort of, it was either, the stories were sort of mostly established Jedi fights evil Force, or young person discovers their destiny in the Force. That was sort of the division between the sort of, I think in most of them, this was sort of in the latter, I think, where he, discovers that he can use the Force and he can use a lightsaber, and as it happens in most of these, some baddie turns up and kills the master, and then leaves the young apprentice to have a crack. But I did like the restoring planet stuff that came into it too, and I did feel like it was Tatooine
or is it just a motif? They had a lot of they had a lot of hints there that it was, and Star Wars Explained certainly thought it was. But you kind of go, well, Tatooine's is a desert for a reason. It's got 2 suns. It's probably close in orbit. It's how sustainable is that life? I mean, is that in that Goldilocks zone?
I think you got a lot of trouble to get to grow some plants, and then like 6 months later, they're all it's just like when I buy plants and you buy them and then you forget about it and then they all die, and then you got to go get some more. Next time you go to Bunnings, you're like, this time it'll be different.
But also, you've got to think about if you're terraforming a planet, what happens to everything else on there? So Tatooine is full of life, as we know. There's
Banthas,
the Banthas,
Tusken Raiders, Womp Rats.
Yep. And of course, there's
Toro Calican.
all the population there already. So, this one person deciding to terraform the planet, is he making that decision for the entirety of the planet if it's Tatooine? Or is it just some other random uninhabited planet, which, we don't see any other people?
Yeah. Or it could be Tatooine 1,000 years in the future where everyone's left and, the planets can't sustain life anymore. I mean, that's good, but I like that it doesn't have to... You don't have to slot it into a bit and go, this takes place 6 years after Return of the Jedi, but it has to take place before this bit because this character's got to be here and do this. It's like, just keep it loose, man. Cute. Again, Asteroid Boy vibes. Again, sort of felt kyber crystal stuff, discovering a lightsaber, it sort of fell into that thing again. And then we move on to, there's only got a couple more left here though, but we've got The Elder, which...
This was cool as well.
David Harbour in this one.
Yeah.
Now, this was a real, like, proper anime slow burn start. Like, even the way they were talking, like David Harbour's very just like, don't worry about this. Like, it was real, but it was real slow burn. It was really like, it was the apprentice kind of like, like it really felt like that. Like it took like a good half of it to get going anywhere. Really, it was really just warming up. A lot of warming up.
Yeah. But again, this is one that I'd like to see more of this pair or this universe. It felt very High Republic to me. I don't know why I got those vibes, but it felt sort of set in that era almost of a master and a Padawan going out to the wild regions or going out to distant regions to work things out, and the master had obviously had experiences and ventures in this region before. It felt far more High Republic than closer to the prequel-y era.
Yeah. And they're just sort of like this sort of random old dark side dude just decides to take up shop and then starts looking for a fight, really. I don't know why they split up. It's like that. As soon as they split up, I'm like, this isn't going to end. And like, to his credit, the apprentice doesn't actually die in the end. Spoilers. And I did like when they killed him at the end and he kind of crumpled into rocks. I thought that was. I'm like, that's quite an interesting concept. Like, I quite like that, the sort of finality of it.
Yeah, that he'd been. I think the impression I got was that he was very old and the dark side had sustained him for such a long time that his body just crumpled without that dark side force flowing through him.
But he was still like looking for a fight though, which I thought was quite interesting. Like, he seems like he was just sort of like, well, I'm going to go out with a bang.
I think my reading and understanding of the Sith, of that, and especially like that old style Sith, is that they thrive and live on that hate and that anger, and it's what sustains them. So in some ways he's looking for that adrenaline boost, that life boost of that hate of the Force, and he needs it to keep him going. So yeah, he's there to pick a fight, to keep him going.
And then he got his comeuppance at the end.
Yep.
So some cool bits, some cool designs. David Harbour, always good to see him. There was a sort of, there was probably 3 or 4 long-haired, middle-aged Jedi Masters in these animations. It was sort of like, oh, this guy's just got a different hat on. It's, that design did pop up a few times in there, but very cool.
No droid in this one.
No.
That I can remember.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. I'm just trying to remember. Don't think so.
Yeah.
Then we move. We've only got 2 to go here. We'll probably hit time.
But it was probably the most sort of traditional master and apprentice that we've seen in terms of Jedi for all of it. It was the most traditional. Like they were in the robes and everything.
Yeah, definitely. And then we go to Lop and Ocho, which had the rabbit lady, which had a very weird start to it. It really took me a minute to figure out what was going on and sort of why the other family adopted her. It was like they just kind of found her and then just decided to adopt her. And it wasn't sort of like till halfway through they're kind of like, oh, you weren't even from this planet. We just found you, blah, 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 because like the Empire had moved in and it did take a minute. And there was some very much like the daughter, especially at the start, was like very, very anime sort of Japanese. Yes. Like the expressions and stuff that they did and the way she talked was like, wow, this is like proper, dubbed Saturday morning Voltron-y vibes.
Yeah. Very much so, that especially that first bit, yeah.
Yeah. But so, I mean, look, I thought this one particularly, the design was really cool. I liked like the design of the village and stuff. That had the similar to like Rogue One, it had the Star Destroyer sort of parked over the top.
And it looked almost like they had like 2 spires or scaffolding, for the lack of a better word, almost holding up the Star Destroyer. Like it was there for so long that they've just decided, oh, we'll build supporting structures for it rather than just burn the engines the whole time. Yeah.
And it's quite funny because, you go to that and then you jump to like a few years later and they're all kind of grown up, and then the daughter and the dad are fighting, and it's quite cool that, she decides to stick with the Empire. She thinks that's where they're at. And then she cuts her ponytail off and does like the blood on the eyes. I'm like, that was just a cool design. That was another one. I'm like, oh, that's just a cool design you'd like to see in Star Wars, like just with the red on the eyes and things, and then you see her and she's in the Mendo outfit at the end.
It will forever be the Mendo outfit, not the ISP. No, the Mendo outfit.
Yeah, and that was cool. And again, it was another one of those like you take the family lightsaber, you take up the family lightsaber.
And again, it was also about found family. It's, because, Lop, the adopted daughter, was the one who the father decided to give the lightsaber to because...
Well, granted, only until he had no other option, though.
Well,
it wasn't like the two of them there were like, both obedient, and then she went, oh no, I'm going to go with you. You're more pure of heart. It was more like, oh, the other one's actually completely turned to the Empire now. Yeah. So I guess it's you.
But it's also that, well, yes, this is being passed from one generation to another in this bloodline for so long. I could, traditionally it could end with me, but no, you might be adopted, but you are family.
Yep.
So it's that, again, that's very Star Wars idea of found family. Doesn't matter who your bloodline is.
Yeah. Yeah, it was cool. And again, it was a sort of, oh, I want to see where this goes. That leaves it quite interesting point. The daughter, Ocho, I think her name is, she's all in the Empire at the end. I did like that she jumped off the edge and she was on top of the starship as it came up. That was quite cool. And it was. It's just interesting that obviously all these places worked independently, but they did hit a lot of sort of similar beats, and beats that are in Star Wars as well, like choices and family, like you said, and all that kind of stuff, and destinies and things. And
adorable droids.
Yeah, some adorable droid.
This droid was so cute.
I would like to see that Ocho in live action, actually. Like, I hope that it'd be really nice to, like, going forward, if they put some of these creatures in, these new designs in live action. All of a sudden you're watching like The Mandalorian season 3, you're like, oh look, there's the rabbit people, or something like that. That'd just be cool. Like why not bring them in? Last but not least, I was nearly going to say Akiri, but it's Akakiri, which I think has Henry Golding doing the voice.
Yes.
I watched that Snake Eyes movie the other day, which wasn't very good, but he's a pretty handsome, slick kind of guy, Henry Golding. So,
yes, he is.
This was quite an interesting one. It does take a different turn at the end. Again, it's got a similar slow burn. Got some very lent on some sort of, some very Kurosawa tropes, like the two guys, like who are the guides and things. It had that very Japanesey sort of cartoon humor of the two guys, sort of the big personalities and stuff like that. Like, I did really like that. I did like when they're riding the emu kind of things as well. And but again, you feel like you're sort of dropped into a story. You feel like you're dropped into a bigger story where you kind of feel like you need a bit more backstory. You're like, oh, okay, she's exiled, but like, what's going on? And like, it's sort of,
yeah, there was a bit going on, and he had these nightmares or flashes of people being killed, and because there was the blurb is why I knew that there'd been a relationship of sorts between the two characters. Otherwise, I don't think I would have got there.
You weren't feeling the vibes?
It wasn't really, as clear as why he came to the planet.
Yeah. And even at the end where he decides, spoilers, where he's just like, I did like that she sort of tricks him into killing her, like putting the helmet on her and stuff. Cause it was a nice, like the villain in this again was sort of like a Sith lady, but it was design-wise very different, and she was like the sister of the king, I think it was, and it was sort of, it was quite interesting. It was just a different sort of vibe and stuff, which I quite liked. And again, it was that not beholden to canon, just a Sith person who's just, happens to be running things, doesn't seem to be beholden to any other society and things. And then kind of tricks him into murdering her, and then just says, hey, look, I'll help you bring her back, but you gotta join the team.
Yeah.
And he does, basically. So it kind of ends on a bit of a downer, really.
Yeah. And so it was an odd placing away for that to be the last episode. That's the note that we're left on. So and that was an interesting thread that, again, I think I'd like to see continued, in that, okay, does he stay Sith or does he turn?
But what's she doing now? Like, she's alive, and then he just kind of walks off. He's like, well, I brought you back. Quite easily too. Like, considering what Darth Vader had to go through, like, he's saying, oh yeah, let's stick together and we'll bring Padme back from the dead. Can't actually follow through. And then like this lady just does it like straight away. And you think even Ben Solo brings Rey back, and it costs him his physical life. But also I'm interested in, okay, that woman that got brought back, what does it mean to be brought back by dark Sith power as opposed to the light Force power? Or is there a difference, or are you, unaffected by that, the shading, as it were, of that force that brought you back? Yep.
If you're brought back by dark power, does that taint, your soul or whatever?
Yeah. Again, it's like, it's good. Like, I like that they've yeah, they tell a little story, but there is also that you kind of want to know more of what's going to happen, and I'll be curious to see whether they, like, season 2 is the same studios doing the same stories, or again, like I said, they pick the 3 that people seem to like the best and they run off into their own things, or where they go. It seems to be, I haven't had a lot of a look online about it, but it seems to be a lot of people who enjoy it. Some people, it's not for them, fine, it doesn't need to be. Especially stuff as diverse as this, but it's cool. Like, it's like new stories. Like, you've got 9 potential new things. Cute droids.
I think, there's a lot of potential there. You're right. If they could pick a few where they give the option to the studios of, if you want to continue these stories, go ahead. But, you don't have to. I think it was still, again, a lot to consume all at once.
Whether they, I think weekly probably wouldn't have been enough, but maybe even 2 a week or 3 a week or over a few weeks.
I think sort of 3 a week over, what was it, like 4 weeks, whatever. Even from the Disney Plus model, that makes more sense. Drag it out.
Yeah, I don't think it would have lost too much, and it was kind of funny because when they said, because they were all roughly 14, 15 minutes long. So it wasn't, because I was kind of going, maybe there'll be a 40-minute one and a 5-minute one. But it was like, no, they're all roughly around, they're all between that sort of 15 to 20-minute mark. So it wasn't as if there was sort of like really, really short ones, which I thought maybe that would be the case. So be curious to see what happens, because it was that sort of watching them all. You watched them all in a row. I watched it over 2 sort of sittings. And there was a lot of like similar beats on some of them as well, which I think with a little bit of separation probably would have helped it. But that's, again, it's cool. Like, why not? More stuff. Great.
Yeah. Yeah, just let them go to town, come up with their own stories, continue some if they like. Because you never know, some could not become like ongoing series, but that sort of Visions 2, we see another little glimpse into those worlds, or they become their own like comic or novelizations.
Well, that's the thing. They can always do comics or something else to continue. They don't have to pump up the cash for full animation if they don't need to. But cool. Well, thanks for doing this, Catherine. I know it's a public holiday here in Melbourne, so it's a little bit easy to get people on. I've managed to jump on during nap time at our house, so things are, I think, quiet. I haven't heard. Normally, I usually hear someone coming through behind me to get to Sloane's room if she's awake during naps and stuff. But you've been pretty solid on That Geek Pod. I know you haven't been, I think, last week, but you've had stuff out most weeks with some good guests, people we know.
Yeah, it's been pretty much fortnightly, recording on the weekends, because, the neighbours in front, they've just started building, but of course the 2 weeks pause on construction here in Melbourne.
There you go. Thanks, Dan. There you go. He must have realised, he's like, let's not worry about the absolute disregard for health and safety that they're doing. We just want to make sure Catherine can get her podcasts out.
Yep. Yeah. So I've sort of tried to keep it to that fortnightly, but if it doesn't happen because of whatever, it doesn't happen. It's all good. Because, there's lots of stuff out now. The what ifs are sort of keeping me a bit going.
I haven't watched the latest one yet. I'll probably do that this hour, I reckon. The Thor one.
Yeah. And Shang-Chi, of course, we haven't seen.
No.
Yeah.
But again, as we sort of started at the top, that we're probably three to 4 weeks away from being open again, and hopefully for goods. That means the cinemas will be open in time for Shang-Chi, Eternals, Ghostbusters, Dune. There was some other stuff as well. But then, like Star Wars related, it probably means that we're going to try and do something for Book of Boba Fett when it starts. We'll be able to actually get together and watch it as a little gang again, like we did for Mandalorian Season 1, which will be great. So we're hoping, fingers crossed, this is the last hurrah of lockdowns here in Melbourne, and life will get back to normal, and away we go. Yes.
Book of Boba Fett, they're saying Christmas. That's as specific as they're getting, I think, until Disney Day on November 12th.
Yes, so I think we may. I know you've got your own podcast for content, but if there is an Andor trailer coming on there, we might have to drag you back in and talk.
Yeah.
We'll save the Andor talk for if something comes out on Disney Day. But
I need to learn how to do like a reaction video, because I know people want to see it, but
worst case, just stick your phone in front of your screen and just record it while you're doing it, and then sync it up later. I can help you sync it up. But yeah, people will want to see it. So if you haven't got a YouTube channel by then, we can put it on our YouTube channel or put it online.
Yeah, the last one was would have been like the Investors Day or something,
like the behind the scenes kind of thing. Yeah,
yeah, and I was doing like a Year 12 class, and I looked at my phone. It was on silent, but I could just see like a lot of notifications on there. I'm like, oh God, it's come. It
happens here.
And then, everyone left, and I'm like, looked at it and went, yep, okay, it's come. And I literally collapsed to my knees.
Well, the thing is, we're probably going to know. So, they're just going, hey, we're doing a Star Wars stuff. So the problem is that it's not that they're going, all right, we're going to show some Book of Boba Fett, we're going to show some Obi-Wan, we're going to show some Andor. I mean, they might do that, but a lot of this stuff sometimes sneaks out, but there's no guarantees. So there's a good chance it'll be the same thing where you'll just be somewhere knowing that it's on. So depending on when it is, either you'll be home watching it or you'll be working or having to, one of your other adult obligations, and then your phone will just start melting down. Yeah.
So I think timing-wise will be Saturday the 13th our time. It just depends what time it actually starts. So it could be slightly overnight or morning for us. So, it'll be interesting to see whether I'm, at my Pilates class in person or doing virtual Pilates and
by November we might be out. So we're supposed to be out. So hopefully, maybe even we'll get in person, and we could even get down the pub and get a few of our Melbourne buddies and bust it out and react there. But we'll see how we go. But anywho's, Catherine, thanks for jumping on. Always reliable. Always happy to come on and talk about stuff. So I don't know where we'd be without you being able to help out with things like this. It was just good to get an episode out. Quickly tell the people where they can find you if you don't already know.
That Geek Pod is on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can find That Geek Pod podcast whenever you can find podcasts, like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google. Yep, we're there.
Awesome. And thanks everybody for sticking around and asking where we've been and doing all that stuff. And I can't guarantee that there'll be another episode right away. We'll just have to see what happens. Lockdown's a funny thing, but hopefully we'll see you when you see us. So thank you very much, Catherine. Thank you, everyone. And we're one day closer to Andor. Hashtag copyright Catherine. Bye.